So we are holding today on Daf Ayin Bet Amud Aleph by the two dots, where it says Tanu Rabbanan. So the Gemara brings a Braita, Tanu Rabbanan, Kol otan 40 shana shehayu Yisrael bamidbar, lo haya lahem lo haya yom shelo nashva bo ruach tzefonit b'chatzi halayla. We were speaking about the ruach tzefonit, the northern wind. So the Gemara says that all the 40 years that Bnei Yisrael were in the desert, even though the northern wind didn't come during the daytime to heal from Brit Milah, but there was no night at midnight that didn't have the northern wind. Every night had still that wind came. Shneimar, like it says in the pasuk, Vayhi b'chatzi halayla ve'Hashem hika kol bechor. So the pasuk says that it was chatzot, midnight, and Hashem hit all of the bechors. Meaning Hashem killed all of the bechors. So
that was in Mitzrayim, right?
That was in Mitzrayim, yeah. So it says the Gemara, my Talmuda. Well, what do you see from that pasuk that indicates that every night that northern wind blew? So the Gemara says, Kamash malan hakamash malan de'et ratzon miltahi. That time was an eight ratzon, and since it was an eight ratzon, that wind blew. That wind blew that night, and it blew every night at Chatzot.
A time of want, a time of desire? What's that mean?
Eight Ratzon is not a time of. I guess you could say a time of desire. It's an Eight Ratzon is an auspicious time. It's a special time.
Not
that.
You can't compare it to this.
Yeah. Okay. So says the Gemara, Amar Rav Huna. So now back to what we were speaking about before in this parak, which is someone who doesn't have a milah eating truma. So over here, it's going to be a little bit different. Amar Rav Huna, Devar Torah mashuch ochel betruma, umidivreim gazru alav mibnei shenireh keharel. So there's someone called a mashuch. A mashuch is someone who he got a brit milah, but his skin was pulled, and to the extent that now it looks like he never had a brit milah. So it's someone who had a brit milah, but his skin was pulled over, and it took for a long time, whatever. It was formed to stay that way, and it looks like he doesn't have a brit milah. So mideoraita, Rav Huna says mideoraita, he's allowed to eat truma. He's considered like he has a brit milah. But midrabanan, because he looks like an arel, Rabbanan said he can't have truma until he has that removed, until he has it fixed. So Gemara asks on this, Meiteve, mashuch tzarich sheimol. There's a braita that says that a mashuch needs to have a brit milah. So we're asking, it sounds like it's deoraita. So the Gemara says, no, midirabanan. That's only midirabanan that he needs to have a brit milah. That's not a question on what Rav Huna said. So the Gemara asks, v'dekarila mai karila. Okay, tov. The one who was asking from this braita, why was he even asking? Meaning, Rav Huna came and said a halacha, a mashuch, someone who he has a brit milah, but it looks like he doesn't have a brit milah. Yeah. So Rav Huna said, midoraita, he's considered, he's good. Midirabanan, he needs to have a brit milah. So someone came and asked, oh, look, I have a braita. It says he needs to have a brit milah. So the Gemara is asking, what's his hava? If we're asking from that braita, where do you see anywhere in this braita an indication that such a person, a mashuch, needs a brit milah midoraita? It's just midirabanan. Where do you see any indication that he needs a brit milah midoraita? So the Gemara says that Katai Besefa, he made a mistake at the end of the Braita. If you look at the end of the Braita, you'll see why he thought that it was saying that he needs a Brit Milah on a Deoraita level. What does it say at the end of the Braita? Rabbi Yehuda Omer Lo Yimo. Rabbi Yehuda says that a Mashuch, someone who had a Milah and his skin was pulled down, and it looks like he's in Arel, he doesn't do a Brit Milah. Why? Mipnei shesakanahu lo, because it's a danger at that point to cut off too much. I guess it's a danger. It could make him a krut shuvcha, could make it that he's not able to have children if there's a mistake. So Amru lo, והלא הרבה מלו בימי בן כוזיבה והולידו בנים ובנות. So they responded to Rabbi Yehuda. They said, why shouldn't he get a brit milah? A lot of people like this who were mashuchs, they in the times of Ben Kuziva, they had a brit milah and they were able to have children. The rest of the story behind the scenes is that Ben Kuziva, it was Bar Kochva. So before he rose to power, a lot of people, I guess, wanted to fit in and not be persecuted by the goyim, and they made their brit milahs look like they never had a brit milah. They made it look like they were an arel. They were moshech their milah. They pulled it down and held it that way for long enough that it stayed that way, and they made themselves look like arels. And when Bar Kochva came to power and he became melech, they what's it called? They did a brit milah, and they were all fine. They all had children. Here, I put them up. They were all able to have children. So what do you see? That even though they were mashuch, they're able to have children. But still, they have to have milah. Shneimar, it says in the pasuk, himol yimol. Afil mea pa'amim. Pasuk says himol yimol. He should surely do a brit milah, which we learn from that pasuk even 100 times. So from there, it seems like we're learning from that pasuk that someone who is moshech their orla, they need to have a brit milah from that pasuk min deoraita ve'omer, and have another pasuk that says et biriti hefar. Et is always coming to include something. So et biriti hefar means he was mefir, he went against my covenant. But the extra word et, is coming to include not only a regular orla, but also a mashuch. So l'rabot da mashuch, it's coming to include a mashuch. So it sounds like from these psukim, we're bringing mashuch again is somebody who had a brit milah, but his skin was pulled down, and now
cut enough the skin?
No, they cut enough. But he
Later
made
in
it
life.
look later in life.
Grow?
He made it look like he like pulled it to grow and cover the atara. So now it looks like he's a arel. Right? Even though he had a brit milah, but now it looks like he's an arel. So the Gemara first said, mideoraita, he's considered like he has a full brit milah. Midirabanan, he's like an arel. Midirabanan, he needs to have a brit milah.
Again?
What?
Again?
One more time. So a mashuch, we understand what a mashuch is? Clear? Mashuch is somebody, they cut off his orla, he has a brit milah. Okay? Now what happened? He pulled it down to make himself look like a arel.
He did it purposely?
Either he did it or somebody else did it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make a
It
difference.
was common during the time of the Greeks, because they used to do athletics and stuff,
Okay.
and they would have fit in.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the point is, now his brit milah looks like he never had a brit milah.
So you should
Right.
check by
He looks like a arel.
Midoraita is moed, but Midorabanan is not a moed. That means you have to do it very to like it.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what Rav Huna says. Midoraita, he really doesn't need anything. Rabbanan came and said, "Oh, this guy, he looks like an arel. If he's eating truma and this and that, it's midorabanan. He needs to have brit milah before he could eat truma. He needs to fix it." So that's what Rav Huna said. Then the Gemara is asking. It sounds like it's deoraita, not the Rabbanan. Why? Because we bring a braita with these psukim. The one pasuk says himol yimol. It says he has to get a brit milah even 100 times. Sounds like if he's a mashuch, he has to get a brit milah. And then another pasuk says et biriti hefar. Et is always coming to include something additional.
Well,
So
I don't understand how anyone can make darshan or anything with the word et. I know people do that. I know it's dumb, but it makes no sense to me. Because et is specific. If it's a specific word, if you say ha or a specific name, you have to use et, right? And if not, you don't. So why is there any chiddush in the et?
So, for example, we make a drasha. I'll just very briefly. We make a drasha. Kabed et avicha ve'et imecha. Right. So it could have just said kabed avicha ve'imecha. But from the fact that it says et, the Gemara says larabot achicha gadol. You have to have kavod also for an older brother. It's including something on a secondary
level.
level.
Don't look at it
Or-
as Ed is your stepmother.
So there's also a drasha.
You mean you wouldn't have? I can't remember how that, because usually, I don't know how. I just know in modern Hebrew.
Yeah, I know, I understand that. I'm saying in the Torah, in the Torah, it could be written. The pasuk could have written kabed avicha ve'imecha, and that's perfectly grammatically fine. Right. Or over here, it could have said briti hefar. Oh. It doesn't have to say the word et necessarily all the time. Okay, but either way, so we have this drasha. So the Gemara was saying that's why this person who asked the question assumed that it was deoraita, because look, we have psukim. So my ve'omer, how come it says ve'omer another pasuk? Why do we have two psukim over here? So v'chitema ha'i himol yimol rabot tzitzina ma'akavin. Maybe you'll tell me the first pasuk himol yimol that says do it many times. That's not coming to say that do a brit milah and then if he becomes a mashuch, do it again. It means do a brit milah, and if you missed some parts, you're going to have to do it again even 100 times. Maybe that's what that pasuk means. So that pasuk is not talking about a mashuch necessarily. So tashema et biriti hefar, but I still have the other pasuk et biriti hefar that lerabot da mashuch. That's coming to include a mashuch. So Usavar, the one who asked the question from this braita, he understood that midekanasiv la'ashas kra deoraitahi. That from the fact that the braita is bringing a pasuk to prove that the mashuch needs to have a brit milah, it's deoraita that he needs to have a brit milah. That's what this person who asked the question from this braita thought. Velohi, but it's not really true. Midrabanan vekra asmachta ba'alma. It's midrabanan, and the pasuk is just an asmachta. So, meaning the pasuk is not really, it's not a real drasha. There's something called a drasha gemura, which is a real drasha that makes it deoraita, and there's something that's an asmachta, that is just drabanan, but the chachamim found a hint to it in the pasuk, but that doesn't make it deoraita. So at this point we're coming out that, like what Rav Huna said originally, that a mashuch, only midrabanan he needs a brit milah. And these psukim that seem to be drashot, they're not real drashot that make it deoraita. Okay, now the Gemara asks, Meitere, tumtum. So we have this braita. So the braita says, it's going to say a few halachot. Tumtum en ochel b'truma. So a tumtum is someone who their genital area is covered with skin. So you can't tell if they're a male or a female. Yeah, it's covered. Their area is covered. So tumtum ein ochel b'truma. He cannot eat truma until you find out what it is. Nashav v'avadav, but his wives and his avadim ochlin, they could eat. Now the Gemara later on is going to explain what it means his wives. Because how could the Gemara is going to ask that. Mashuch, you have a mashuch, someone who looks like an arel because his skin was pulled down. Vinolad kishum mahul, or a child that was born already with no orla, he was born already mahul. Hare elu ochlim, they could eat truma. They could eat truma.
But I thought they have to do like some sort of someone that's born like that, they still prick it or something.
They do, yes.
But they don't need to.
This is according to this opinion in the Braita. This is not halacha. We don't say necessarily halacha from here. Also, this is just talking about eating truma. So, androgynos. An androgynous is someone who has both male and female body parts. Ochel b'truma. They could eat truma.
What do they consider such a person? A male or female?
So it's a machloka, whether it's a male or a female or its own category. But either way, they could eat truma. Ve'en ochel bekochim, but they cannot eat kochim. Meaning, the only thing that could hold back from eating truma is not having a brit milah, right? Let's just clarify this. The tumtum, the one who the area is covered, so it might be a male, it might be a female, right? If it's a female, then could eat truma. If it's a male, the area is covered, so he doesn't have a brit milah. So since there's a chance that he's an arel, he cannot eat truma. That's why a tumtum cannot eat truma. An androgynous, who has both body parts, so we're talking about that if on the body part of the male he had a brit milah. So if we're considering the androgynous a female, so okay, he doesn't need the brit milah, and they could eat truma. And if we're considering the androgynous a male, okay, so he had a brit milah, he could eat truma. So either way, the androgynous could eat truma. Kodshim they cannot eat. Okay. Tumtum eno ochel lo b'truma v'lo b'kodshim. And then we repeat again, a tumtum cannot eat truma or kodshim. So that's the Braita. So we said a few halachot in the Braita. The Gemara is going to explain the Braita, ask some questions and explain a little bit better. But either way, what do we want to pull from the Braita originally? There's one line that says like this: Katani mi'ad mashuch v'nolak shu ma'ul hare'elu ochlin. It says that a mashuch and someone who's nolad mahul, a mashuch and someone who is born with a brit milah already, they could eat truma. So tiyufta de Ravuna tiyufta. The Gemara says this seems to be a disproof to Ravuna, because Ravuna said midirabanan he's not allowed to eat truma, and over here we say in the Braita that a mashuch is allowed to eat truma.
Mashuch, everybody knows that he had a brit milah before.
It doesn't make a difference.
Yes, make it.
No, it doesn't make a difference. Because once you're making a gezerah, it doesn't matter if you go with this guy and that guy. Some of them people may know. Some mashuchs people are not going to know. But
so that means mashuch, that means he's not 100%. He had the brit milah.
No, not everybody is gonna know. I mean, you see somebody random in the mikveh that looks like he never had a brit milah. How are you supposed to know if he's mashuch or not mashuch? There are going to be some people that a person may know that, oh, he actually had a brit milah and he was moshech his orla, and there are going to be some people that you don't know whether he's a mashuch or not. But it just looks like an arel. So when Chachamim made a gezerah, they make a gezerah regardless of whether you know or how many people know. It doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, there's three opinions. One opinion thought to say, we had a havamina that midioraita mashuch needs a brit milah, but that we kind of disproved. Rav Huna said that midrabanan he needs it to be able to eat truma. But we have a Braita here that seems to be saying that even midioraita, even midrabanan, he doesn't need and he could eat truma. And the Gemara says that this seems to be a disproof to Rav Huna. Okay? So Amar
how you could call somebody mashuch?
I don't
Somebody in
understand.
a mikvah, he doesn't look like doesn't have it brit milah, yeah? How do you know this guy had a brit milah before to begin with?
So if you can't tell, you can't
have to
tell.
go to the guy and say, did you have a brit milah? Of course I had it.
No, even people who look like they do have it, maybe they didn't need it too, because there's people born without one.
I don't really understand
I'm
your
sorry,
question.
boy, I'm sorry to take the time on this.
It's not.
Doesn't mean it. So doesn't. I don't understand from
What's the question? Someone they themselves know. Their parents told them, listen, we gave you a brit milah, or he knows he had a brit milah. He's 20 years old. He's 20 years old. He had a brit milah. He wants to fit in with the Greek culture that all the Greeks are allowed doing athletics and whatever it is. So he's moshech himself, and it now looks like he didn't have.
By Allah, he did it.
Yes.
He did the brit milah. He became a Jew. Okay,
yes.
After that, he did something, he pulled it out. He just want to show off or something.
So the opinion of Rabbi Yossi.
When we go to him, say, of course I had a brit milah before.
Yes. But
why the Midirabona and Midoraita comes in this picture?
No, the opinion. There's three opinions. One opinion says that he could eat truma. He's fine.
I know.
Right? Okay.
Why that's
I'm going to explain each opinion. The one opinion says he could eat truma. That's great. That's fine. He's nothing, no problem. Other opinion says since he looks like an arel, Chachamim said we don't want anybody who even looks like an arel eating truma, and therefore he has to fix it before he could eat truma. We can't have anybody who looks like an arel eating truma. That's midrabanan, and the opinion that says it's midoraita is because there's a pasuk. They thought that there's a pasuk saying that if he does this, he has to fix it before he can eat truma. You're not allowed to do this. There's an isur to do this, to moshech or lato, right? It's more than this amud. It's a bigger sugya. There are other places in the Gemara that also talk about this, but if it's doraita, it seems like there would be an isur to be moshech or lato to make yourself look like an arel, and if you do that, you have to fix it. Okay, so let's go further. So Amar Mar. So we said in the Braita that tumtum eno ochel b'truma and nashav v'avadav ochlim. So a tumtum, someone whose genital area is covered and we can't tell if they're a male or a female, so they can.
Both.
No. Androgynous is both. Tumtum is that it's covered and you can't tell. So, and we said he cannot eat truma, but nashav v'avadav ochlim, his wives and his avadim, they could eat truma. So the Gemara asks, nashav letumtum minale. How does a tumtum have a wife? Ile madekadish. If you're going to say that the tumtum was mikadesh, a lady, the Tanya tumtum shekidesh kidushav kidushin. We have a braita that says that if a tumtum is mikadesh, a lady, we take it seriously, and she needs a get before she can go with anybody else. Nit kadesh kidushav kidushin. Also, if someone is mikadesh a tumtum, also that tumtum needs a get before they could go to anybody else. The point is, a tumtum, we don't know what's underneath. We don't know if it's a male or a female. So if the tumtum is mekadesh a lady, we're worried. Oh, maybe the tumtum is a male and the kiddushin is a good kiddushin, and she is an esherish. And if the tumtum receives kiddushin, maybe underneath is really a girl, and the tumtum is mikudeshet. So Emar da'amar lechumra. That's only lechumra because we don't know what it is. So we have to be machmir. Oh, maybe he's really a female, and maybe the tumtum is really a male, and if it was mikadesh a lady, is considered married. Maybe, but lekula, to say that no, he's considered married, and now we could feed the lady truma. That mi amrinan, do we say such a thing? Safek ishahu. There's a chance that the tumtum is really a female, and a female cannot be mekadesh a female. So Amar Abaye explains Keshe Beitzav Nikarot Mibachutz. Abaye says we're talking about that the ever is covered, that it's a tumtum, but we know it's a male because we can't he cannot have a brit milah because there's skin covering the ever. But the beitzim are near od mibachutz. The beitzim are they're visible. We could tell that it's a male. Rava says no, that's not the case. The whole thing is covered, but still, when it says his wife could eat truma, it's not referring to his wife. My nashav imo. It's referring to his mother. His wife means his lady, means his mother, not his wife. And so the Gemara says, Imo Pshita, obviously his mother could eat truma. We're talking about that the mother was a Bat Yisrael who married a Kohen, and then they have a tumtum. And then the husband dies. So the mother could eat because she has a child from the Kohen. So the Gemara says, okay, that's obvious. The Gemara says, no. I would have thought that you have to have a child who is able to reproduce. So we know that this child is a male or a female and they could reproduce. Then that child would cause the mother to eat truma, but not such a child that's a tumtum. Kamash malan never comes to teach me. No, even a tumtum could feed the mother.
Child has to be normal that in order to mother to eat the truma.
The child can. That's what we would have thought. So therefore, it comes to teach us. This braita comes to teach us, according to Rava, that no, even a tumtum could feed the mother. So now the Gemara just a few more lines. Tashima tumtum eno ochel lo b'truma v'lo b'kodshim. So we said in the Braita, tumtum cannot eat truma or kochim. And then we had two lines in the Braita. One line was, a tumtum cannot eat truma, his wives could eat truma. Or his mother, according to Rava. And then we have another line at the very end, it says a tumtum cannot eat truma or kochim. So bishlam la Abaye, tana resha arel vaday v'ktani sefer safek arel. So according to Abaye, it makes sense. The first time it says tumtum, we're talking about Abaye said someone we know it's a male. We see his beitzim. We know it's a male. So the first case was talking about someone who's 100% tumtum. And the second case is talking about first case is talking about someone who's 100% arel, because we know he's a male, but he's tumtum, he's covered up, so he cannot eat truma. And then the second case is talking about even a safek arel. It's a tumtum, we don't know, it could be a lady in the second case. So that makes sense, according to Abaye, why it says tumtum twice. One case is a tumtum who we know it's a male underneath there, and he cannot eat truma because he's an arel. He didn't have a brit milah. The second case is a tumtum. We don't know. It could be a male. It could be a female. Still, they can't eat truma because maybe they're a male and they're an arel. El Rava tumtum de seifa lamali. But according to Rava, why do we need to repeat twice that a tumtum can't eat truma? So the Gemara says, "My tumtum arel." When it says in the seifa tumtum, it's talking about someone who's a vadai arel. We know it's a male and it's an arel. Not that skin is covering the whole area. We can't tell if it's a male or a female. Talking about skin is covering. There's an orla. So the Gemara says, "Hashta safek arel lo achil vadai arel achil." We just said in the first line of the Braita that a tumtum who's a safek, whether it's a male or a female, so maybe they're an arel, maybe they're not. They don't eat truma. So of course a vadai arel is not going to eat truma. So the Gemara explains matam kamar. We're explaining the reasoning. The matam tumtum eino ochel b'truma b'mnei shesafek arel hu ve'arel eino ochel lo b'truma v'lo b'kodshim. A tumtum doesn't eat truma because tumtum is a safek arel, and arel doesn't eat truma or kodshim. So the Gemara is explaining that according to Rava, the first line is talking about someone who's a safek arel, they're a tumtum, we don't know if they're a male or a female, and the last line is talking about a vadai arel, and we're saying the reason that a tumtum cannot eat truma is because it's a safek arel, because of the potential orla that he has on the tzad that he's a male. Okay, we'll stop here, because this is just a good place to stop. The Gemara gets into something else, so we'll leave that Be'ezrat Hashem for the next time. Good question.